They whispered it in secret academies. They copied it by candlelight under the threat of persecution. And they studied it, relentlessly, through centuries of exile, war, and wandering. Not a weapon, not a treasure, but a book. A book of questions more than answers. Of law and of legend. A book that never ends, because every generation writes itself into its margins. This is the Talmud. And for over 2,000 years, it has been the beating heart of Jewish thought, law, and identity. But what is the Talmud, really? And why has this vast, complex, and often misunderstood text become one of the most influential books in world history? To understand that, we have to go back, way back, to a time when the voice of tradition was passed not on scrolls, but through the breath of memory. It begins with the Torah, the foundational text of Judaism, given, according to tradition, to Moses at Mount Sinai. But alongside the written law, Jewish tradition speaks of another Torah, one that was never written, one passed down orally from teacher to student, father to son, rabbi to disciple. This was the oral Torah, a living body of interpretation, legal discussion, ethical reasoning, and spiritual reflection. For centuries, it was never committed to writing. The fear was that once it was written down, it would be treated as static, frozen in ink rather than alive in the voice. But then came catastrophe. The Second Temple in Jerusalem was destroyed in the year 70 CE by the Romans. Thousands of Jewish scholars were killed. Communities were scattered. The very future of the Jewish people and its teachings hung by a thread. And so the sages made a radical decision. They wrote it down. Around the year 200 CE, Rabbi Judah the Prince compiled the first written version of the oral Torah. This work was called the Mishnah, a terse, intricate collection of laws, rulings, and debates covering everything from agriculture to marriage to criminal justice. But the Mishnah wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. For the next 300 years, scholars across Jewish centers in the land of Israel and Babylon pored over the Mishnah, questioning every word, debating every interpretation, and connecting it with biblical verses, lived experience, and legal logic. These commentaries, layered, poetic, argumentative, and endlessly curious, became the Gemara. And together, the Mishnah and Gemara form what we now call the Talmud. But here's where it gets even more fascinating. There are actually two Talmuds. One was compiled in the land of Israel, called the Jerusalem Talmud. The other, more expansive and widely studied, was compiled in Babylon, modern-day Iraq, around 500 CE. This is the Babylonian Talmud, and it's the version that has shaped Jewish law and life for the past 2,500 years. So, what does the Talmud look like? Imagine opening a page. At the center, a short line from the Mishnah. Around it, like a whirlwind, spirals the Gemara, rabbis debating, asking, answering, and disagreeing. In the margins, medieval commentators like Rashi and Tosafot add their voices. Later scholars join the conversation. Even today, yeshiva students around the world crack open this ancient book and add their own questions to the mix. There's no clear narrative, no table of contents, no chapters in the traditional sense, just page after page of sacred conversation. And that's what makes it so alive. The Talmud is not a book you read, it's a book you enter. It's not a monologue, it's a dialogue across continents, centuries, and minds. Now, let's be honest, the Talmud is hard. It's written in a blend of Hebrew and Aramaic. It assumes deep background knowledge. It jumps between topics with dizzying speed. One page might discuss Sabbath laws, then pivot to dreams, demons, or Roman politics. And yet it's precisely that complexity that makes it so treasured. Because the Talmud doesn't just teach what to think, it teaches how to think. It teaches the art of asking better questions, of challenging assumptions, of seeing truth as a multifaceted gem, not a one-note slogan. One rabbi says A, another says B, a third says they're both right in different situations, and a fourth replies they're both wrong, and here's why. It's messy, it's glorious, it's alive. But the Talmud isn't just abstract argument, it's also full of stories. Some whimsical, some heartbreaking, some mystical. Like the tale of Rabbi Akiva, who began studying Torah at age 40 and became one of the greatest sages in history. Or the legend of Hillel, who stood on a snowy rooftop to hear Torah being taught because he couldn't afford entry. Or the tragic story of Rabban Gamliel, a leader humbled by his own arrogance in front of his students. Through these stories, the Talmud speaks not only to the intellect but to the soul. Over the centuries, the Talmud has been studied, cherished, and fiercely protected. It has also been attacked, banned, and burned by rulers who feared its power or misunderstood its content. In medieval Europe, Christian authorities accused the Talmud of blasphemy and ordered public burnings. In the 20th century, the Nazis targeted Jewish learning centers, hoping to erase the Talmudic tradition. But it endured. In underground study halls in Soviet Russia, in refugee camps, in modern digital platforms. From Baghdad to Brooklyn, from Vilna to Jerusalem, the Talmud lives on. So what is the Talmud? It's a law book. It's a storybook. It's a record of faith under fire. It's a library written by a people who believe that conversation with God and with each other must never stop. And more than anything, it's a testimony to the power of sacred argument, a spiritual symphony composed by 1,000 voices across time. Even today, in the 21st century, there are those who wake before dawn to study a page a day, a global movement known as Daf Yomi. It takes 7.5 years to finish the entire Talmud this way, and hundreds of thousands around the world are doing it. Why? Because buried in these ancient pages is something electric, something timeless, a question that still burns, a truth that's still unfolding, a conversation that never ends. If this sparked your curiosity, you're already part of that conversation. And in the world of the Talmud, every question is a holy beginning. Subscribe and let's keep asking, learning, and exploring together.